everyone. Welcome back to Book Talk Tuesdays. I'm Miss Jessica, a youth and teen librarian at the Chelsea District Library, and this is our video show all about brand new books for kids ages 8 to 12. And I have a special guest and a new coworker here with me today.
Hi, my name is Matt Jensen, and I am the new, I think my official job title is like technology librarian or something like that, which sounds a lot cooler than what they initially gave me, which was library tech 2. So
And really what that means is that when we have tech problems, we call Matt. And it also means he runs our Minecraft server right now.
that's true.
So today's theme for Book Talk Tuesdays is brand new science fiction books. And we have some really, really good ones for you. The first one I have is called The Unexplainable Disappearance of Mars Patel. And if you like to listen to podcasts, that might sound familiar to you because it's actually a book based on a podcast for kids. And this book is really cool. I was a little worried it would be kind of gimmicky because of how it's set up, but it totally blew my expectations out of the water. Focuses on a kid named Mars Patel and his group of friends at a middle school near Seattle, Washington. And they realize that two of their friends have disappeared. Not like they ran away or they're just skipping school for a couple days. They have disappeared. They are not there anymore. And in fact, kids are disappearing all over the world. And it all seems to be tied back to this podcast that they like to listen to, run by a guy named Oliver Pruitt, who happens to be the owner of this fancy prep school, high school that Mars and all of his friends are about to apply to get into for the next year. So there's a lot of different layers going on. There's like 2 or 3 different mysteries kind of all working together in the story, which I really love because I love mysteries too. And there might also be a little bit of time travel and possibly alien action happening. I can't really tell you more than that without giving away most of the story, so you're just gonna have to check it out for yourself. It's formatted really cool too. So it's not just a chapter book with lots of text. It's broken up in some ways by email and text message exchanges. And sometimes there are even transcripts of Oliver Pruitt's podcast in there too. The best part is there's not just one book. I think they're going to make it into a 3-part series. So I saw that the second book is going to be released later this year, and then hopefully there will be a third one after that too.
Nice. That sounds awesome. I
Yeah.
love when they like combine a couple genres together. Yeah, that sounds great. Speaking of Mars, the first book that I'm going to talk about is called The Lion of Mars by Jennifer Holm. I have not read anything by her before this, but let me tell you, I'm into it. She's a very good writer. The characters are all very interesting. The premise is really great. So basically, the arc of the story, which I won't get to the second half because obviously those are spoilers, but it sort of starts and you're on this alien planet, Mars particular, and you find that you're with an American colony, and the entire story is sort of told from the perspective of a young boy named Bell. The group of astronauts left Earth. Sort of recruited a whole team, and they were sent to be a part of a international colonizing effort on Mars. So there's different places on the planet that have been colonized by different nations. And you learn pretty early on that they all used to work together and they've had accomplished some really amazing things together. They built like an underground train tunnel between their different compounds, etc. But something happened in the not so distant past, probably I think it's about 6 years before the story starts, and it caused the American group to lose trust with basically all the other nations. The captain of the group, Cy, decides that they can't work with them ever again. So there's sort of this set of rules which are meant to protect them, but added on at the bottom is never work with other people. And so that, as you may expect, proves to be a bit of a sticking point. When a catastrophe happens and there's nobody left to deal with it but the kids, they have to decide whether or not they're going to break this big rule or whether or not they're just going to give up and die, basically. So it's very exciting. The characters are awesome. The writing is very, very good, and I think it was pretty enjoyable from the first page to the last.
That sounds excellent. And Jennifer Holm, I just love her. She writes science fiction. She writes historical fiction. She writes the Baby Mouse graphic novels. She does a little bit of everything.
Those are
Yeah.
really good. I didn't. I That's why her name looks familiar. I
Yeah.
used to do all the graphic novel collections in Chicago, so that makes sense.
Yeah, and she actually came to Chelsea several years ago for Authors in Chelsea. She was one of our visiting authors. So
That's awesome.
we love Jennifer Holm in Chelsea for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Well, I do too now, and for more reasons than I thought.
Yeah. So my next book, I'm kind of cheating because I actually have a book and its sequel. I have The Last Day of Summer and The Last Mirror on the Left, both by Lamar Giles. And they're both excellent. They're very funny. They're full of adventure. And what I love is that they're funny, but they don't go so totally absurd that you lose the story. Like there's still plenty of character development, and you really get to know these two boys. They're cousins. Their names are Otto and Sheed, and they are known around their county for solving mysteries. And they get to, in the first book, last day of summer, they get to the last day of summer, and it's been the best summer of their lives. They do not want it to end. And this mysterious guy shows up, Mr. Flux, and he's like really super stretchy. It's kind of weird. And he hands them a special camera, and when they take a picture, they freeze time, and they are the only people that can move around. So they kind of get the wish, right? They get to
Yeah.
extend summer as long as they want to. Well, things obviously are not going quite as planned or as they had hoped that they would. They sort of have basically opened up a portal in their county, Logan County, and all these strange figures and people are kind of coming out. So there's a little bit of like a superhero element to it. I can't give away too much without giving out the storyline, but the second one is really good too. And so this time they're up against their arch rivals in the second book, The Last Mirror on the Left, and those are the Epic Ellison girls. And Otto encounters a secret about the future of his cousin Sheed. And it has to do with their family. So you get to learn more about their family and their background. They're so funny. The writing is really, really good. It's super funny. There's lots of action and adventure. Every chapter kind of leaves you thinking, I'll just read one more. I'll just read one more. If you have kind of blown through chapter book series like My Weird School Days or Eerie Elementary, Desmond Cole Ghost Patrol, books like that, and you're ready for a bigger, longer book, this is going to be a perfect choice for you. And the third book is coming out later this year.
It's funny to hear you talk about the like sort of that book being crazy and wacky, because the next book that I'm talking about, called Dimension Y: How to Save the Universe Without Really Trying, it's awesome, and it's by a guy named John Cusack, not the actor. That's John Cusack. Okay. But yeah, so John Cusack. And again, I had never read anything by John Cusack before, but I think that's because this is his first novel. It's about as goofy and absurd as you can get. I would say that similarly to what you said, you don't really lose the character development, though. It's still very fun. So I think I can say, if you liked something like Captain Underpants as a kid, or anything that sort of has that like absurd humor to it, where there's, like funny gags and things happening all of the time, you might end up really liking this. And from the other side of things, I would say an author that's very similar to John Cusack, that has written a ton of super celebrated books, is named Douglas Adams. And he wrote books called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
And you can
And
take
they
those
were
when you're in high school and older.
right. Yeah. Correct. So I'm trying to think for like parents to recommend. There's a lot of just like funny, absurd humor in it, and it's a very fun read. So the general storyline is that the main character is named Finn, and the other main character is named Lola. So Finn lives in, like, I think it's the year like 3000 200, something like that. And Lola is from approximately our time, so the 21st century. There has never been a time traveler in the history of ever, but it's known that there will be one. And it turns out it's Lola because she sneezes in an x-ray machine when she's not supposed to, and something happens and they don't know why. Anyway, it triggers this crazy prophecy in the universe that leads to Finn, who's the heir of this amazing baked beans interstellar galactic transport corporation, because they find out also that baked beans are specifically the ingredient missing in wormhole travel. So there's like, I don't know, I told you it's really wacky. It's like a very, very wacky book, but it's, despite all of that, I feel like I could like legitimately explain why he says everything, like why everything happens in the story, which is awesome. So by the end of this, you understand that the missing ingredient in intergalactic space travel is baked beans, and it makes sense. Yeah, so it's great. I laughed, and I had to be careful because I didn't want to wake anybody else up in the house. But it was such a fun read, and I really liked it. I thought Finn and Lola, their relationship was just super interesting, and they just became great friends. And yeah, I highly recommend it.
That sounds awesome. I love funny books that also you can tell the authors just put a lot of thought into the plot line. Like it's not funny just to be funny. It's funny with a purpose, and that adds to the story too.
Absolutely. The other thing I should say is apparently this is going to be the start of a series. So that's actually very exciting. The next book is going to be called Dimension Y: Revenge of the Sequel. And Finn and Lola will be back.
So I cheated again, and I have another original book and a sequel to go with it.
Oh my gosh.
So the original book, The List by Patricia Ford, came out in 2017. And then the sequel just came out a few months ago. So you have to learn about the first book to know about the sequel, right? So the original book from 2017, The List, it's about a city called Ark. And people stay safe in Ark by only speaking words that are on the approved list. And there's about 500 words on the list. So you can't say ant. You can only say insects to describe bugs in general. You can't say pineapple because there isn't pineapple in Ark. It's kind of a limited, kind of locked down type of place. So you don't even need that word because there is no pineapple there. There's only a few kinds of fruit. There is a wordsmith who is in charge of the list and also has access to words that are not on the list. And the list keeps changing. It keeps getting whittled down and down and down to a smaller amount of numbers. The main character in the story is Letta, and she is the wordsmith's apprentice. So she also has access to the words on the list and what they mean, and also words that are no longer on the list. One day, the wordsmith disappears, and the Ark officials tell Letta that she's now the wordsmith. It's her job as an 11-year-old girl to be in charge of the list. And she's got to cut even more words down, and she's got to make it even shorter. And then she encounters a strange boy. He comes into the wordsmith shop, and he knows all the words on the list and thousands of other words, which is like a huge no-no. You can get in big trouble and get arrested for that. And she has to make a choice. She has to either stay within the rules and stay safe from the officials and the leaders of Ark, or free its citizens with the power of words. And obviously, as a librarian, I love this whole concept. I love words. I love books. I love how descriptive language can give you just the right way to express your feelings and all of that. It really reminds me of a classic book called The Giver
I
A
was just
really,
going to
really
say
similar
that.
setup. Yeah. And in fact, you can just really tell that the author was influenced by The Giver so much. Even the head leader of ARC, his name is John Noah, which is really, really similar to the main character of The Giver, who is Jonas. So there's even little connections like that. So the second book, the sequel, is called The Last Lie, and it just came out recently. And in this book, ARC is just in total chaos. The leaders have all changed over. So there's a new person in charge. And Letta has inadvertently caused a rebellion, and now she's kind of got to get herself out of
Whoops.
trouble. So that's where the last lie comes in. And basically, the new leader is intent on removing language from ARC altogether. So you wouldn't be able to speak or communicate or write or talk or anything at all. She's going to remove language altogether. That's her goal. And Letta is basically like, well, this is a terrible idea. So once again, it's kind of up to her to save the citizens of ARC. So both of those books, The List and The Last Lie, are available at the library now. I don't think that there's going to be a third book. I think this is where it ends. It's just the original book and its sequel. The thing I love best about these two books is that the action starts right away. So within the first 3 pages of The List, you come to understand how this world is set up, how the government and the politics work, and what the rules for using words and the list are, as well as Letta's role. So that's not even halfway through the first chapter. You have this whole place figured out and put together, and then the action starts right away. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
That sounds really, really great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you would really like both of these. I don't read science fiction a ton, although I love it when I do read it, and I could not put these books down.
My last book, I would say that, interestingly, I don't know if you did this on purpose, but all 3 of my books seemed especially relevant to sort of mid-COVID life.
I
Yeah,
think
was that
authors
purpose?
are picking up the need for stories that help us live with the life we have right now too.
Yeah. Well, of the first 2, there were, sort of all sorts of issues of, um, solo dependency and being sort of like reliant on your own work and working hard and sort of not being able to be held responsible by anybody because you sort of have to do a lot of the work, right? Which I think is something that a lot of, I know my kids are definitely struggling with their schoolwork and everything. But the third book specifically is about a global wide pandemic that shuts everything down. Everyone is stuck in their houses and nobody leaves or goes anywhere. Everything's done remotely, and it was like, oh my gosh, you wrote this book exactly for this time. The third book is called Cleo Porter and the Body Electric, and it's by Jake Burt. And it was fantastic. I mean, I really liked all 3 of these books that I've read, but Cleo Porter and the Body Electric was a grand slam. I was blown away by Cleo, the main character. She's exciting and interesting. She's brave. She's so empathetic, which is something that I value in main characters so much. I want to know that they care about the story that they're in, and she just is. She's so invested in everything, and it just makes her extremely relatable and a lot of fun to sort of watch her take on this incredible challenge. So, ever since she was 6, she's been studying to be a doctor. She's going to be a surgeon. So, she's done that from her own home. And the main way that she learns is through a tablet called Ms. Vane. And VAIN stands for something. I can't remember exactly what it is now. But it's it's like a virtual access interface network or something like that. It is what all children use to sort of learn and take classes remotely. And One of the things that I also really loved about it was that of all the computer characters that I've ever seen on a movie or read about, Ms. Vane is one that I would absolutely love to have in my life. She's funny and supportive. She's interested, and she never really tells Cleo, like, no, you shouldn't be interested in that, or no, you like shouldn't be curious. She encourages her in almost, basically all of her curiosities, which may or may not be great in the long run, because on the week before Cleo's about to take her year 12 test to sort of reach the second phase of doctor study, like medical school for kids, basically, she receives a box of medicine that is addressed to the wrong person. Now, the problem is that everything is done automatically by drone transport. When she talks to her parents, both her mom and her dad say, no, that's impossible. They don't deliver things to the wrong address. And Cleo says, well, this obviously is to a woman named Miriam. Nobody here has that name. What should we do? And in the end, Cleo decides that she has to leave. She has to leave her pod with her parents and sort of venture out into the world to see if she can deliver this life-saving medication. I think that the book takes place within like the square radius of like a few miles.
Wow.
But it was just like so phenomenal. It really blew me away. I loved it so much.
That sounds so good. So that, what that reminds me of? When Amazon delivers something to your house that's not yours, but you can't get anyone on the phone to tell you what to do with the box.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. Like, how insignificant is that in our world? Getting a package that's supposed to be for somebody else. It's not a big deal, but it's like, oh, I just want to fix this. How do I do it? And everyone is telling you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But it really matters to Cleo. I would love to read more about her, although I think this is a standalone novel.
Well, thanks, Matt, so much for sharing some of these awesome brand new science fiction books with me. Hopefully you heard of something that you'd like to check out from the library. And if you want to put an item on hold to pick up, you can contact the librarians at 734-475-8732, extension 219, or you can email us at ref@chelseadistrictlibrary.org. Thanks for watching.